Hey everyone, welcome back to another production meeting. We kind of set this up because of the new DC news that has dropped. No movies to talk about this week, just DC stuff. James Gunn and Peter Safran, the co-CEOs of DCU or DC Studios, has just dropped their first 10 projects that they're going to be doing over the next several years. And some characters and stuff that they're going to be using, and we'll kind of like go through all that stuff. But before we do that, how are you, sir? Because I haven't seen you in a little while.
I know. What was the last? We didn't even do a movie. We've just done our most anticipated for this
Yeah,
year.
that was what,
I've
2 weeks
caught up
ago?
on some stuff.
Did you?
Just rapid fire. I watched Tar on Peacock. That's such a niche movie. It's so hard to recommend. I don't know. Have you watched it?
No, not yet.
You would be a person I might recommend because you're not like of the artsy fartsy, but you appreciate it more than I think most
Okay.
would.
Yeah.
So I watched that. I watched Vengeance, the BJ Novak thing.
Mm-hmm.
Solid introduction for a film, directorial debut. It's not great. It doesn't stick the landing, in my opinion, but it's not a bad movie. Let's see, what else did I watch? I watched Puss in Boots. I recommended that to you
Yes.
last week. Very good. I think that's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so probably won't win its nomination. I think that'll probably go to Del Toro's Pinocchio, just cause.
Yeah.
I feel bad about that. What else? What else have I watched? I watched Plane. That's generic but fun. It's Gerard Butler just, being Gerard Butler. And
Your
then
butlerness.
yes, exactly. What else? Saw something else. I saw Megan. We haven't really we talked about probably doing that as a
Yeah.
review. It's got great social media and marketing awareness, and it's got good word of mouth, but like it does nothing for me. I think for me personally, because it was held back, apparently this was like kind of like The Invitation. It had an R rating and
Mm-hmm.
they just way toned it down. And so I'm like, yeah, whatever. It does really nothing for me. It doesn't offend me or, I don't hate it, but it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like some movies just like that's a disadvantage. I mean, it's not like I'm not looking for like blood and guts and gore and everything, but I mean, it's just for to hold back a movie like that, I think it kind of like does a disadvantage. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, there could have been more, but a lot of people really enjoy it. So this is one of the times where I'm apparently wrong. But it's okay. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm probably forgetting something else, but yeah, those are what I've caught up on in recent weeks. What about you?
The Last of Us. I've just been watching that.
That's something I haven't done yet. I'm
Really?
waiting. My wife wants to watch with me. And we might just be waiting until the first entire season is just out. That way we can just rapid fire it.
Hmm.
So, but I've read, each episode has been more and more and more anticipated than the last. So,
Yeah.
so it's like making like view records and
Hmm.
it's like the highest seen thing on HBO Max as far as the series goes.
Yeah.
I'm since either Game of Thrones or the House of the Dragon. So,
Oh yeah, that's right. House of Dragon. You're right.
what do you what do you think of it? I know you said you enjoyed it, but what do you think?
I think it's done really well. I think that the changes that they've made to the story itself helps. And it kind of, because I mean, when you do some video game adaptations and you try and change stuff and it just doesn't make sense, the changes that they make. But this one, I feel it does. I mean, you've played both games, so like you know that like the game does the spores and stuff like the spores that
Yeah.
kind of like transfer, but this is like fungus and like yeast or something like that. I think they kind of like hint at. And it changes it, but it makes sense for a TV show. Like, you know, when you're in a video game, that's not really what kind of like I know some games you want like the story to be great, and I know The Last of Us, both of them are like the stories are great, but you just kind of accept that that's okay. Spores, yeah, that's like you kind of go through that. But with this, and you're trying to hit it like a broader audience, I just think that the changes they made were beneficial for the show.
Yeah,
Uh,
I wouldn't call myself a hardcore Last of Us fan. I enjoyed the first game very well. It's a great story. The second game is a little bit more not contradicting. What's the word? Almost infamous. It's like it was really great in like technical aspects. Like it looked great, it played great. Um, just all these different features were great, but the story's a little brutal. Not like in a bad way, but it's like this game part two punishes you for playing it, basically.
wow.
Yeah, it's you're have you played it?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I probably still have it so on PS4, but I know you're waiting on getting a PS5, so um whenever you want, I can let you borrow that. And
Okay.
you'll see what I mean. Which makes me hopeful because you said there's the small changes. One, the whole spores to fungus thing. I think, the way I view movies and TV shows, I'm not so much of a detail person. I'm like, okay, I get the general gist of things, and once I got that, I'm good to go. Like, I don't need to know the entirety of a conversation. I got what you were saying. So, like, the point of that being is, it's as long as it's some type of infestation kind of growthy thing. I think the
Mm-hmm.
details aren't totally that important. So that's fine. They're making tweaks, but not like absolutely, changing up the story like, it's not even Last of Us anymore. So they're keeping true to most of it. So that sounds
Yeah.
good. Um, and then that makes me hopeful for because season two apparently will be about part two. And I'm curious, I'm very curious if they're gonna change up some like mid-tier, not major plot points. So that'll be really interesting. Maybe they tweak it, maybe improve upon it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for it either way. How many do we know how many episodes this is gonna be? Is it 8 or is it
Yeah.
10? Okay.
Wait. Yeah, because they smushed the premiere episode together because they didn't feel like where they ended it with the first episode would actually draw people back to it. So they go all the way. They make like a two episodes into one. It's like the premiere is like an hour and a
Oh
half
yeah, yeah,
long.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be a not a popular thing to do, but like it's a pretty typical thing to do, especially when you're starting off an
Hmm.
entire. So yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm excited anyway, and it sounds like it's good. So
Yeah, it's really good. I was a little skeptical about Bella Ramsey being Ellie, but I think that she's doing really a good job. So, and of course, Pedro
yeah,
Pascal. I
good.
mean, he's carrying around kids everywhere. So
Yeah, right.
there you go. All right, so let's move on to our subject matter of this week. So it's going to be the DC news. So if for those of you who don't know, um, James Gunn and Peter Safran. James Gunn is famously the director of all three Guardians of the Galaxy movies for Marvel. He also did the Suicide Squad for DC. He and Peter Safran, who is what he's best known for, is he's a producer on the Conjuring movies. Um, so he's a highly successful producer, and they are both co-CEOs of the DC studios now. So Warner Brothers has fired the previous regime and has hired these two to kind of like take over for DC. Now, there has been some change ups and some stuff that like a lot of fans are upset about, especially like Henry Cavill not being rehired as Superman. James Gunn has come out just yesterday or the day before and said that he wasn't fired, but he wasn't really hired back as Superman.
Let let me say one thing on that too. They made that so confusing because was the whole James Gunn um takeover, not takeover is a bad word, but it, for lack of a better word, James Gunn takeover, was that before or after the release of Black Adam?
So officially, they both became CEOs of DC on November 1st of 2022. So Black
Okay.
Adam came out when October 15th or something like that. So I think the whole debacle with Henry Cavill was because like The Rock kind of fought the previous regime to put Cavill back in as Superman. They caved. I don't know if they knew that like they were gonna just be leaving anyway or what. I don't know. I don't know what the whole deal is, but it was a little premature for all of them to be like, yeah, he's back as Superman, and Gunn was like, no,
Yeah, see,
sorry about you.
that alone, I'm just like, if I'm Henry Cavill, I'm just like, you know what? I'm firing like middle fingers everywhere. I'm just like, I'm
Yeah,
so done with this. Like I am. He's left the whole The Witcher.
right.
I don't know. Did he leave or did they recast him?
He left because there's rumors going around that saying that the writers and like the showrunners were not staying true to the books, because I
Uh,
believe that the books are slightly different from the games, and because people are more familiar with the games, they wanted to have the show a little bit more like the games. But it's a book, it's like a 7 book series. Some, I believe it's Swedish or Danish or something like that.
well, now he's out of both jobs, and it's like I feel for the guy because he was great in both roles, if you ask me.
Right.
And I'm
And I
man,
completely agree. Looking over what James Gunn wants to do, it is kind of like, okay, well, the Superman role is not really going to fit him because Henry Cavill's like almost 40.
yeah.
So, but they officially took over on November 1st of 2022. They've got a few, projects in line. And what's funny is when I go over this, it will kind of make sense on like why they started back, like delaying the Flash and Aquaman, because we'll get to it. But yeah. Um, so I'm just gonna go through like the list of stuff. First is gonna be movies. There's like a couple movies that they're gonna put out, and like I said, these are movies. So the first stuff that's actually gonna it's officially gonna kick off the DCU is gonna be Superman Legacy, which is actually going to be written by Gunn. Um, they made a joke saying that James Gunn is probably going to direct. I don't know. Um, but it's going to focus on, this is a quote from them. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage and his human upbringing. He is the embodiment of truth, justice in the American way. His kindness in the world that thinks of kindness as old fashioned. Um, I've heard them kind of like explain that like Superman's supposed to be in like his mid 20s. So I guess this is like a kind of newer Superman. So that's why Cavill's probably not going to help. Like, wouldn't fit as this Superman.
Okay. So it's kind of
So
like sounds like a mixture of a little bit like Smallville and kind of like how Invincible sort of is set as far as
right,
chronologically. Okay.
right,
Um, sounds like yeah. Hey, I'm open for anything. It's just let me just see the final product. DC has been literally like throwing darts against the wall and just seeing what sticks,
right.
and it's been an absolute no. They've been throwing spaghetti at the wall, is what they've been doing, because none of it makes sense. Like, ironically, the best thing that's come out is the Snyder, in my opinion, the Snyder re-release of Justice League.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
because
and
it was more coherent.
yeah, and I mean, now granted, it is a marathon of a movie, but still, it's just yeah, it's just all over the place, DC. So, I if I'm like, thumbs up, thumbs down, I'm more like kind of like right here and not all the way a thumbs up. I'm just like,
Yeah.
who's gonna be Superman? Too. That's um, is that do we know anything about that? Okay, so
The only
yeah,
thing that we know about this movie is that it does already have a release date of like July 11th, 2025.
yeah. Oh, let let me let you go. I think I know what you're gonna say next, and then I'll say what I will about the release date. So I am I am more for this than against this. I mean
Mhm.
Superman, everybody loves Superman. Go for it.
Yeah.
Let's
Um, no, the Superman movie that was supposed to be produced by J.J. Abrams, and written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, about the Black Superman or African American Superman, is still in the works. It's still being produced. However, anything that is outside of this DCU, like the Batman and this Superman movie, is going to be called DC Elseworlds. So the Joker, the Batman, it's gonna live outside of the main DCU, and it's going to be called DC Elseworlds. So this is still in development. So we're still going to get an African American Superman, just not within the main line of what DC's doing. I can't even say that it's like Marvel, because everything is kind of connected with Marvel.
I both look at that with pessimistic thoughts, and then I also but at the same time I'm like, it actually almost makes sense to do that, because it's like, here we have, our highway of, this has not been good. I mean, it's like there's potholes everywhere. It's just signs are hanging, by a, thread. But at the same time, I guess, we have this, but then we've got the side thing going, and then we're gonna slowly make that our main highway, and then, um
Well, yeah,
yeah.
because it's kind of like Marvel, where I think the like Peter, like Saffron and Gunn have come out and said that DC is a multiverse. So they threw that
Yeah.
out there to begin with. So I know that, like, with with Marvel, it's Earth 616, I think, is like the main one, and then they have their offshoots or whatever. And then with DC, I think it's Earth One. I
Yeah, that
I
sounds
can't
right.
remember which one, but I do know that they have their main, and that each Earth, like each multiverse has. So I'm assuming that this is probably what they're going to like factor in to like their DCU. So
I guess it's a great excuse to have if something sucks. Oh yeah, that was
right,
universe beta.
basically. Up next we have the Authority. Leave it to Gunn to kind of like pick obscurity characters out of nowhere to like hopefully make them famous. So again, this is from a Variety. Gunn spoke at some length about the Authority of Project. He says he's really excited to bring to life. The characters come from Wildstorm, which is like an offshoot of DC. So maybe this is a part of their multiverse or whatever. And then some of the Wildstorm characters became like DC canon. So I guess some of the authorities like this, and it's basically uh, a quote from James Gunn is that it's this isn't just a story of heroes and villains, and not every movie and TV show is going to be about good guy versus bad guy. There are people that are very questionable, like the Authority, who basically believe that you can't fix the world in an easy manner, and they take things from their own hands, or take things into their own hands. Sorry. So I'm going to assume, I haven't read this. Again, James Gunn is very famous for making like obscure characters into like very popular stuff. I'm guessing this is like a team of anti-heroes, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, probably DC's full of them.
Yeah. So I guess that's what it's Saffron added, they're kind of like Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. They know what they want. They know that you want them on the wall, or they at least believe that they do.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I've never heard of this.
Neither
But
have
I
I.
guess, yeah, but I guess this is going to be next up in the DCU. Um, Following that is actually, we're going to get our DCU's version of Batman. So the Brave and the Bold is going to exist
Mm.
separately from the Robert Pattinson stuff. This is actually going to be the main Batman now. I don't know who's going to be Batman, but it's supposed to be dealt with him and Damian Wayne, who is the current Robin, I believe.
Mm.
And so it's going to be a Batman Robin movie. So they're going to jump right into this. Um, so it is based off of an actual comic book run by Grant Morrison. Um, I believe I read this. this one. So I think he finds out that he does have a son. I think this is the version that he does have a son, and he names him Robin, or names him the current Robin. But Damian Wayne is very different from any of the other Robins. He's trained by the League of Assassins. He's kind of, excuse me, but he's kind of a dick. So,
Not Dick Grayson.
no, he's kind of like a douchebag. So, he's very straightforward and very kind of, it's like a Spock type, very logical. And he's wanting to kill because he's a trained assassin. His mother is Talia al Ghul.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of excited about this because they're actually going to introduce a Robin. I know that we've gotten like a few Batman movies without a Robin and kind of like one with a hint of a Robin. I think it'd be kind of cool to see like the Bat family kind of be introduced in a main movie. So yeah, I'm, bringing other Robins and stuff like that would be kind of cool too.
I think that's a good. I agree, because it's a very, very rich story. There's a lot to go on, and it's pretty good. So it's a good avenue to explore. While I don't know a ton about it, I know like a basic amount. And I agree with you. I think it's a good way to go. That's how I felt about when Robert Pattinson's Batman came out last year. I was like, because I had played the Telltale Batman games, and they do the whole Falcone thing, and that storyline. And when I was watching, I was like, this is very much that, just with minor differences here and there. But I was like, it's nice for them to see and go into that avenue. And I was like, that's pretty solid. I mean, and not too many people know of they know of Telltale, but I doubt a lot of people, like everybody who saw Batman, had played that and thought,
Right.
you know what, the same thing like me. Oh, that's pretty good. So, and it's a darker tone. I mean, Batman's supposed to be darker in nature, and given the whole scrutiny with Robin and like his upbringing and how like shaded everything kind of is, and how it's more negative, I guess, like tonally. So I think it's good, like, because you want a darker Batman movie. You don't want a slapstick kind of. I mean, Tim Burton's is solid for sure,
Right.
but we're in a different age, and I think a darker tone one is the way to go. So I agree.
Yeah.
I think this. I'm more for this than I was on Superman, and I was about here with Superman. I'm more pretty much, let's do this.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I'm kind of excited that they're actually gonna, like I said, do a Robin story. Because I mean, make all the jokes that you want, but like Robin is an integral part of like who Batman is now.
Yeah.
His supporting cast is very much present into like his stories. With Nightwing and all the other ones. So hopefully that's where they're gearing towards, and I'm hoping that they're going to start bringing in like some of those other characters into this.
Yeah.
So next up we have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So this is also based on a comic book run by Tom King. It features Superman's cousin, Kara Zor-El, who is a very different type of Supergirl. This is a quote by Gunn as well. We see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he's an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on the rock chip of Krypton and watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways the first 14 years of her life. So Supergirl is going to be much more hardcore, according to James Gunn. Apparently, I haven't read this run, but apparently it deals with Crypto, the super dog, as well. I guess. Again, I haven't read this. I actually kind of want to read it now. But I think this is like this and The Brave and the Bold is a perfect example of why I was so excited about James Gunn taking over for DC, because he can pull like again, I repeat myself, he pulls obscurity out, but he follows the comic book line so well that that's what people fell in love with. Where it's like, no like shade on Snyder, but he's trying to create like these characters from scratch. Like we don't already know who these people are. And I think that that's
Right.
the great thing because like he even said like the Superman movie is not an origin story, which is fine because we don't need another origin story of Superman. If you don't know who Superman is by now after what 80 plus years,
Yeah.
like bro, like what rock have you been living under?
Yeah. Right.
So this is, I mean, this is what I'm talking. Like, this is why I was so excited about James Gunn because I think he understands, like Kevin Feige, he understands the comic books and he understands what makes these characters like come off the page. And you know, I'm kind of crossing my fingers that this girl that was I can't remember her name for the life of me, but she's Supergirl in the Flash movie. I hope she gets this. Like, if this is her, I hope she gets her chance. You know what I mean? I mean, I still like. I remember that video of her getting her casting. She was so excited. So hopefully she gets this. Hopefully this is her movie. Yeah,
Hopefully.
right. Um, so that's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. The last movie that they have up on here is Swamp Thing. Yes, please. I wish that I could find the TV show that was like on the DC network like a couple years ago. It was really good. By James Wan. So if you ever can find it for like on some streaming service, I highly suggest that you watch it. It was really good. Um, but again, another obscure kind of character, a little kind of darker character for James Gunn to pull out of. And this is being a movie, so maybe it'll be like that horror-esque type of movie. Now, a little update on this because I do know that this list was created a couple days ago, and since then, there's been rumors that James Mangold is actually in talks to direct this, which is the director of Logan and the new Indiana Jones movie coming up. Um, so I absolutely like, yes, please. Like he did such an amazing job with Logan, and that's another comic
Yeah.
book movie of a darker tone. So
Yeah.
bring him along.
I
So
I agree with that. I thought Logan was solid, great film, dark tone, like you said. Um, and I'm like, I don't know much about Swamp Thing other than the name itself, so I don't know any of the backstory on that. So it would be, um, I will have to look up that show, and I'm wondering if they're gonna do like a. Would you call this more of an obscure character or just purely a lesser known character?
I think he's like a B-list character. Well, maybe not even that. I think he's more of a cult following character. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's
Because there's just some characters like even Moon Knight in like in Marvel, like he's not like A-list like on the map, but he's got a cult following that like people read his books and stuff. And I think because of the darker, weirder, because it's Swamp Thing kind of like falls under that like Constantine, like Santana kind
yeah,
of like mythical-esque area of DC. So he's got a cult following, but I wouldn't say, yeah, maybe he's not obscure, um but yeah, he's certainly got like a niche of
yeah. So they've got to they got to introduce this character as if nobody's ever heard of him,
right.
or because that'll certainly help people like me who essentially know next to nothing about him.
Yeah, and I hope so. Like I said, I know that I'm gonna contradict myself, but I think that they do need some origin stories. I mean, with Superman and Batman, you don't need another origin story.
Right, right. Those are well established characters.
Right,
We all know who Batman is. We all know who Superman is. We're good.
right.
Yeah, Swamp Thing, yes.
Yeah.
We need.
Okay. So we're going into television now. There's a few things coming into television. So first up is going to be an animated series for HBO Max. This was actually the very first project, I guess, greenlit by Safran and Gunn. Gunn, who are all written the episodes already, but it's called Creature Commandos. Again, this is from reading right off of Variety. So the Creature Commando characters are first launched in 1980. The premise features Frankenstein's monster teaming up with a werewolf, a vampire, and a gorgon to fight Nazis in World War II. It doesn't appear that Gunn's vision takes quite the same approach. Weasel is one of the characters from Gunn's 2021 film, The Suicide Squad. Is one of the commandos, along with Rick Flag's character, or Rick Flag's father, Rick Flag Sr.
Okay.
So Animation Gun said allows their creative collaborators to tell stories that are gigantic without spending, $50 million per episode. So yeah, some of these things I'm kind of like wondering if they are going to do animated, and this is going to be one of them. There's a picture somewhere that has like their first picture of like what the commandos are going to look like. I'm calling this Guardians of the Galaxy for DC.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be one of those things that they think those weird, funny.
I have really no opinion on this one. Like, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I am neither yay or nay. I'm just like, sure, work on it, do your thing, and then I'll be around when it comes out.
Yeah. Apparently this is going to be like the prologue to the DCU. I know that they, like, James Gunn has said that Superman is going to launch like the DCU. It says that Superman Legacy will mark the start of the DCU, but I've heard rumors that this is like Creature Commandos is supposed to be like the prologue. It's kind of like so set up the DCU, I guess. I don't know. So next up is Waller. So I loved Peacemaker. And I guess this is supposed to follow Peacemaker season 1. I know that Peacemaker season 2 has been greenlit, but they're putting on the back burner for right now to do this. Because I guess it's supposed to kind of like follow the aftermath of like the ending, like the season finale of Peacemaker. I won't spoil it for anybody that, if you haven't watched it, or spoil it for anybody that hasn't watched it.
I was gonna say I not because it was bad or anything. I actually decently enjoyed it. I've only watched 2 or 3 episodes.
Okay.
I can't remember, but so I haven't finished it.
Yeah, there's in the finale. I think there's only 8 episodes, 7 or 8 episodes. But I know that there's a large shakeup that happens in the finale. So I would watch that before you watch this. So, but I think this is also supposed to come out before Superman Legacy. I think this is another one that's like another show that's supposed to like set up what's going to happen in the DCU. I don't know. Next up, we have Lanterns. So this is going to be a Green Lantern show. That's going to include Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, and apparently they want this to be a true detective-like cop show for DCU. Safran has said our vision is very much more true detective, terrestrial-based investigation story. So I know that you and I know that we have talked about on the production meetings, maybe like a year ago, that Greg Berlanti, who is a very famous producer and creator of the Arrowverse on CW, had a show in the works that was dealing with the Lantern Corps, and it was supposed to deal with like Alan Scott and Guy Gardner and all these other kind of like random. It wasn't supposed to be like Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart, so it was going to be like the rest of them. That was supposed to be like a show, but I guess that one has been canceled. I guess.
Yeah,
which is no longer moving forward. So Greg Berlanti's show is not moving forward. This is being taken over, and I think this is going to make a lot more sense than Berlanti show, because from my understanding, DC studio, like the previous regime, didn't want the shows to have major characters in it, and being that Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart are basically staples of who Green Lantern is, they didn't want them using those two characters. And so this one's actually going to use those characters because of everything's connected now. So we're gonna get a new Hal Jordan and a new Jon Stewart, but this is supposed to be like a detective story. Um,
The detective
Ooh.
part, I'm trying to wrap my brain around. But Green Lanterns, yeah, we don't have enough Green Lantern stuff. I think because of how bad their whole Ryan Reynolds movie was
right,
and how poorly it was received, they've just been like that wound just took forever to heal. And I'm like, Green Lantern is a very, very interesting, no matter who you do it about, Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart, it's a very interesting, and just the whole lore, not even the characters themselves, is good. So I am like, okay, I am way more for this than against this because we don't have enough Green Lantern stuff. Like we he's one of my favorite characters in the Injustice game.
mm,
Even though I don't really play those games because I suck at them, but like it was between it was between Aquaman, who was like beast in that game, and then the Green Lantern. And so I don't think, and that was one of my favorite characters going back to the whole like original animated show back in like the 90s, early 2000s when they had Jon Stewart.
right,
Um Great character, just awesome. One of the more not I guess fleshed out, you could say. More of the a little bit more complex, a little bit more layers to him, and
right,
I liked um I liked how intriguing that character was. And overall that show was just great too. So
right,
um so I think it's really important that they get Green Lantern somehow, yeah, back into the fold. And I'm more hopeful than I am worried about this project. So I am all for it.
right.
Let's make it happen. Do we have a release at least window for this? No. Okay.
No,
Didn't think so.
yeah.
Okay. But
I
still
mean,
still promising.
yeah. I mean, you got to figure that like Superman is going to come out in 2025.
Yeah.
That's in July, so that's 2.5 years away. It doesn't say if this is going to be like Waller or the Creature Commandos. I'm guessing that Creature Commandos is going to be out in the next year or so.
Yeah.
And Waller, I would imagine, is the same. So if they're going to set up Superman in 2025, in July of 2025, I would imagine this is going to be within the next year or so.
I was gonna say, I would predict Waller. This might be a little bit in the turbo lane, but I'm thinking like a fall of this year kind of release.
Wow, you think so?
It's possible. I think that's because if she's the main focus of it, I think there's a little less production that needs to go into, and it's more like set pieces that you need to get, not worry too much about like effects. So you're
Right,
able to kind of you're able to push that a little bit further along um quickly than the rest. So that's that's my prediction. I'm thinking that if we get an announcement, it'll probably be around May. That says around a late August, October kind of release date for this year. Now, if not that, I'm thinking like kind of around this time of next year, maybe March
right.
of next year. So that's probably what's going to happen, those two. So if it's not August this year, my prediction's March of next year.
Yeah, because I think Peacemaker was January of last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was early
Yeah,
on in the year.
yeah, it was
So
very early on. I even forgot that it even came out last year. That's how early it
I know.
was.
Right. That's how long it feels like it's actually a 2021 thing.
Yeah.
So
Um, Speaking, I mean, and Team Peacemaker will appear alongside Viola Davis, which I'm glad that they're bringing Viola Davis back. I mean, I think that she encompasses that character very, very well. Um, so yeah. So we did Lanterns. Paradise Lost is going to be the next TV show, which is basically a Game of Thrones type story on Themyscira. This is going to be, I guess, a prequel to Wonder Woman. It says here the this is Game of Thrones-ish style, Saffron said, is the set of the island of Themyscira before the birth of Diana, aka Wonder Woman. So this is going to be like a political Game of Thrones-esque type show set in the DC universe. I have slight problem with this. First of all, let me just say that I like the idea. I really do. And I'm not against having like a all-female cast. I'm not against any of that stuff. But we've just got off of Game of Thrones, what, 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now we have Rings of Power. That's kind of like this political moving of chess pieces in the Middle Earth. And now we have House of Dragon, which is literally Game of Thrones with dragons, or with more dragons. So I don't think that this is going to be as successful as they're hoping it would be, because you basically have like 4 or 5 shows before this. Now you're going to try and do another one on Themyscira inside the DCU. I don't know. This is the one thing that I'm kind of hesitant about. And again, I want to stress that just because it's Wonder Woman, that's not the reason why. I think that the premise of this has to separate itself, not only because it's set on Themyscira, but it's going to have to separate itself from all those other shows. Because, I mean, like we were just saying, this show may not even come out until like 2025, 2026 or whatever. So we know that Rings of Power is probably going to go on for at least 5 seasons. I think that that's what they said. House of Dragon is going to go on as long as it's still popular and as long as like the creators still want to be a part of it. And Game of Thrones itself is never going to go away. Like, it keeps coming back up every so often, just in pop culture. So this is going to have to separate itself. You're going to have to do this Game of Thrones style for the first season, and then like their season finale introduce Diana, so that people come in knowing a character already, or it's going to have to separate itself somehow.
Yeah, I think I have the same idea of like hesitation that you do, just kind of morphed in a different way. So when I hear about this, like this before Diana, the kind of story, I'm just, my first thought was, okay, they're gonna do some kind of, ho hum, just kind of par for the course story that's just kind of like, I just feel like it's not going to be that impactful, not because it's a all female cast or it's about Wonder Woman. That has nothing to do with it. And then they're just going to lead to like, the chosen, the one, and it's going to be her. And I'm just like, that seems pretty hammy in my opinion.
Right.
It's like we had that time and time and time and time again. Pretty much like I'm saying pretty much what you're saying, just in a different, I'm switching it around. Because we've had Game of Thrones where, the one that was promised or something like that, being
Prince promised or whatever,
yeah. And then you have like House of Dragon, which is literally the same thing, just obviously set a little bit further ahead. And then we're just, there's too many things that are like that. So it's like you're saying, you have to set yourself apart from those and really distinguish yourself as like unique. So I am real hesitant about this. Like, this is like, it could be the greatest thing we ever see. Like, there's potentially
completely.
But it's like, for it to be 3 years from now and it doesn't work, or it's only just kind of that in my opinion, that is a loss. 3 years to get meh. But again, that's if we're thinking super pessimistically. I think it's because there is a lot of good backstory for Wonder Woman. She's got a pretty rich, and that's the thing about DC, is like there's so much to use. It's just, how do you execute it? and where do exactly do you go, and how do you portray everybody, and where do you take this story? So I think because we know that there's such good stuff, we're just so worried that it's not going to be used well, because and we're just I still think we're all licking our wounds from how, like, the years and years and years of DC more or less being just kind of mediocrity no matter where
Yeah,
you turn, for the
right.
most part. Some things stand out a little bit more than others, but for the most part it's just been kind of eh,
Yeah,
eh, eh. And so with a pivotal character like Wonder Woman, like, if you set up a poor before her story, then how is her actual story when she comes into play gonna do?
right.
So it's just like you gotta be careful. Now I know obviously it's not Batman or Superman, but Wonder Woman is a pretty big piece of the
Right.
DC pie.
Yeah.
So it it this is a very they need to, like, really be cautious with this, and they need to do it right. So
Mhm.
I'm right there with you. Like, I will watch it, but I'm scared for it, basically, is what I'm saying.
Right. And I think I like I said, either they need to, like, on the season finale, like, introduce Diana. I don't care if she is like a child or whatever, but you need to get some sort of character in there that like DC fans are going to connect with.
Yeah.
Either that or lean really, really heavily into that Greek mythology. Um, why they're on Themyscira, why it's like a secret island in the middle of nowhere, or whatever, why this is this and why is this is that, and explain to like your general audience on like some of the things that maybe like the movies didn't. Um,
Yeah.
and why things are the way that they are on Themyscira. And I understand that that's probably what they're aiming for, but you're gonna have to like lean heavier towards like that mythology, Greek mythology, or introduce Diana somewhere in between in your first season or something.
Yeah. I
Um,
agree. They gotta that mythos, like, and I can speak personally for me. I mean, I think that people love when you deep into a mythology, and, like, why like, how did this come to be here? Greek, the Greek pantheon. How
right,
did and just kind of like, how does everything tie into? And when you kind of, start, flipping the pages of that kind of book, it then leads to being even it helps provide more stability and more depth for your main character to then just jump into. So
right,
I couldn't agree with you more.
right,
So yeah, we gotta handle this right, James Gunn. Come on. You got this. Maybe, hopefully.
right. Um, so speaking of, like, sorry, just reading this over. So it is another thing that's based on a comic book run. It was done by Phil Jimenez and George Perez, which followed the Civil War on Themyscira. However, Wonder Woman was heavily involved in that comic book run, so maybe they take the basis of it. Um, but again, like I said, I think that they need to introduce a character that people are going to want to see
Mhm.
right off the bat. So that's Paradise Lost. Lastly, on the top 10 or whatever the first 10 projects that they're going to do is Booster Gold. Um,
Boosh.
yes. So Booster Gold is Mike Carter, and he is a fan favorite among devoted readers. Booster is basically a loser from the future that gets hold of technology in the 25th century, and he time travels back with a lot of the, I guess, the tech from the future to our present day and labels himself a superhero. So I guess this is the comedy side of what the DC is supposed to be. Now,
I'm like, I've
yeah,
never heard of this at all.
again, another cult favorite. I've heard of him. I don't think that I've actually read any of his books. I do know that it is on the more lighter side of the DC. And I think that he's just another rando character that is weaves in and out of many different, because I think he was a part of like the Justice League for like a minute, But I do know that he's, like I said, it's more the lighter side, and he's doesn't know what he's doing. Um,
Yeah.
so it says in the 25th century, Mike was a disgraced former football star who uses a time machine on display in the Metropolitan Space Museum. So that is the first. With this, I don't know. Like I'm kind of like, it's kind of like the Creature Commandos. Sure, let's do this. Like and as you mentioned before, it's just like, since DC has been riddled with mediocrity, I'm more optimistic with whatever they want to throw out instead of what came from the previous regime.
Yeah.
So speaking of the previous regime, it's not in this article, and I can't seem to find. I was trying to look it up, but I do know that I read somewhere that James Gunn has come out and said that the previous actors, except for Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, are welcome to come back. It does make sense because previous actors like Ezra Miller and Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa are welcome to come back into the DCU. They are trying to set up some of their characters to be in the DCU. If that comes to fruition, I don't know, because I do know that Wonder Woman 3 was canceled. I don't know if it's because of what's going on here or because of 84 being like horribly bad. But Gal Gadot, I guess they have said that Gal Gadot can come back. Speaking of Ezra Miller, they said that they are in conversations, I guess, with Ezra Miller about their recovery and what they're doing outside of the DCU. But apparently the Flash movie is supposed to reset everything, because the Flash movie is supposed to be a Flashpoint movie. And if for fans out there that don't know what Flashpoint is basically the Flash finds a way to go back in time, not through any type of means, but running through the Space Force, or the Speed Force, sorry. And he finds his mother's killer, and it like resets the whole DC universe. And this has actually happened stupidly a couple times in the DC comic books, where certain characters turn out to be evil. Like Bruce Wayne is actually the one that is killed instead of his parents, and so Thomas Wayne becomes Batman, and like his mom becomes Joker, and it throws the whole DC universe into this type of tailspin. It's actually very interesting. It's actually a very good read. And it like Themyscira is at war with Atlantis, and all it's just a big mess, and he has to go back and change it back to the way it was. So, and the whole Flashpoint it spins off, I think, into Earth 2. So that's Earth 2. That's one of the multiverses that happens. So this is supposed to be a Flashpoint movie. It is supposed to reset the DCU. This is probably why these movies have been delayed. Because if it is supposed to reset everything and they didn't want to do anything with Snyder, this is their reason to like prolong this. Aquaman apparently is supposed to set up Superman as well. There's some things that they put into the new Aquaman movie that is supposed to set up what's going to happen in this universe instead of the previous universe. There's rumors that Jason Momoa was supposed to be Lobo. I don't think that he's going to be Lobo. I think he likes being Aquaman. I think I've read somewhere where he likes being Aquaman, or this version of Aquaman. I know that I've read in multiple articles that he has had conversations with James Gunn and Peter Safran about stuff. They don't say what, but I think it's just to keep him in the DCU. As far as Gal Gadot goes, I liked her as Wonder Woman. I think the script for 84 was really bad. And that's one of those Ben Affleck Daredevil things where it's just like, I don't really blame him for it. If the script is horrible, there's nothing really you can do with it. Yeah.
I think it's a combination. I think nothing against Gal Gadot. I don't I personally don't feel like she has the biggest range of um acting. Like I remember Matt when we were talking about our review for 1984, and he goes, "She is an ugly crier." Like not like in a good way. Like you just don't get any good crying out of her. And it feels like it's not that great. But now 1984, uh I don't know about the story itself, but the effects and just yeah, it's pretty much a story too. That movie was just an entire piece of crap. I'm sorry.
It was so random.
Yeah. I mean, Pedro Pascal was still kind of okay in that, sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I if it were me, and again, I have nothing against Gal Gadot. I am just like I would probably go a different route. But that's just me. If I'm like combine the fact that 1984 was so bad that your third movie is canceled, and we're kind of switching things up. We're kind of trying to rebuild and build, with a different foundation. I don't know. I might be looking at a different character, which makes me. What is again? I don't have anything personally against Ezra Miller either. But what does this man have that is so special that somebody else, a dark haired, kind of medium height, skinny guy, can't do? This guy has been, in and out of cuffs for years. I don't get it.
I
Why
don't.
is he so special? There's got to be
I don't.
something about him that he must have blackmail on somebody because I don't get it. What can't we just move on? Why
Yeah.
am I hearing about like somebody has domestic violence about somebody and then they're outed easily, like as they should, probably, because
Right.
that's obviously not, not good. But I'm like, this guy's beating up strangers. He's getting into, fights just left and right, and he's got a substance abuse. I understand helping a person. I get that. Get the help you need. But this is I believe in second chances. But this guy's been in like three different, altercations. You got to move on. Just get somebody else. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I
I don't
literally don't
either.
get it. That
I,
if nothing else, like I'll greenlight everything. Just move on from Ezra Miller. Like just admit that that is no longer a feasible route. Just move on. I don't get it.
I
So
don't
dumb.
I don't know because I know that James Gunn said that he's seen it, so I'm assuming I would assume that the movie's finished because he's seen it and he said that it was one of the greatest superhero movies that he's ever seen. So
We'll see.
yeah, come June 15th or something like that. So we'll
Is
see.
it
But
is it this year?
yeah, both of these, both of the Flash and Aquaman are supposed to come out. I think Aquaman is Christmas Day.
Yeah, I
I
think
want to
that's
say.
right.
So both of these DC movies are supposed to come out this year, which is kind of ironic because I don't think there's actually any Marvel movies coming out this year. Well, no, Guardians is in May, right?
Yeah, Guardians is in May. Ant-Man's in a
Oh,
couple
that's
weeks.
right. Yeah, in a couple weeks. Sorry,
But
sorry,
though,
Disney.
yeah, I know they're so early in the year that
Oh
it's
yeah, and the Marvels is like in July, I think, right?
nobody cares about that. I'm just kidding. Everybody cares about that, sort of, maybe.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm with you. Maybe he's really that good in this movie, and they're just trying to salvage something out of it. Because I know this has been delayed like for years, and like went through like 4 or 5 different directors, and Keaton's a part of it, and Affleck's a part of it, and whatever. I don't know. I don't know why they're trying to keep in contact with him or them or whatever. Um, I, okay.
This is what happens when you run before you can walk and you have no idea, like you're running in the dark and you don't know where your path is.
Right.
You just if it were me, I am easily the type of person. If I am like if there's just kind of a hoopla, a bunch of stuff, I'm like, okay, we are starting from ground zero. Everything's off the table and off the and on the table at the same time.
Right.
Crap on what we've had already, good or bad. We are starting over. I know it may cost money now, but in the long run, this is a 10-year thing.
Right.
You are already in it for the long run. So I'm just I get salvage some of the good, but like me personally, I'm just like just wipe it all clean. Like, you've already messed up with because Black Adam alone lost like $58 million, something like
Something like
that.
that. Yeah. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. And I'm just like, scrap everything. How much worse can you get? So, um, but have you mentioned? I didn't know if you had any more news to go over.
No, the last one is again, like I said, with the Elseworlds stuff, is that the Batman Part Two is the official title of the next Batman movie. It will be released in October. Where did I see that? October 3rd, 2025. So it's going to come a couple months after the new Superman movie. Again, Shazam is supposed to come out on March 17th of this year. James Gunn, and they've both said that if they kind of can meld Shazam into the DCU. If this, I'm going to assume that if Fury of the Gods is popular and is as successful as the last one, I'm sure that they're going to try and find a way to kind of like meld him into the DCU. But again, with Shazam is one of those characters, not really an Elseworlds type of thing, but with Shazam in the DC universe, he's always been kind of like in his own thing. He's never really.
Yeah.
I know that he's been a part of the Justice League like once or twice, but he's kind of like dealt with his own stuff. He's never really been a part of the larger DC universe.
Yeah, he's been isolated enough where it's just that one's a little bit more flexible. You can do it a little.
Right. I think
go ahead.
I think there's references in his books to the other superheroes in the DC universe, but I don't think that they've ever, except for Superman. I think Superman has stopped in like once in a while, but
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Back at the beginning of this, I was like, when you were talking about the release date for Superman Legacy, I was like, I have a little bit of a bugaboo with telling us a movie. Oh man, okay, we are fresh into 2023. All right, this has got a release date of the Batman Part 2 is what again? October
3rd, 2025.
2025. Over 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. I get it. Make us know that have us know that you are doing a project or you are working on a film. I get it. Sure. I just have a small what do you call it? Pet peeve with telling us that it has a release date over 2 years from now. Just stop. Tell us if it's coming out that year. Or at least next year. If it's 2024, okay. Because they did this with Joker last year and it's not coming out until around the same time, October, something like that, of next year, 2024.
Yes, it's October 4th, 2024. So almost a year later will be the next Batman movie.
Yes, and it's a personal pet peeve. I just feel like ranting about it. I'm like, tell us that it either is coming out that year or sometime a year from then. I mean, whatever happened to that? I know things are production is way bigger. It takes a lot more time to make these movies. Because there's special effects. There's so many people. I get it. Heck, video games take years. Like we had 4 years in between God of War 2018 and then Ragnarok last year. So I'm like, I get it. But I'm just like, just don't tell us that it's coming out until like if it's within a year from then.
Right.
Like, because now I'm just sitting here, oh man, I can't wait 2.5 years for this movie. But I guess I will. But
Well,
that's
yeah,
me. I know
I,
I'm probably in
no. It's not yet. I agree with you to a certain extent because it's the and where I agree with you is that like we don't have any casting for this. We don't
yeah.
have a director for this. We don't have literally anybody that like I know, and it's only said that James Gunn has written this. He's written the draft for this. Okay, which is a draft, or he's writing it in the process of writing it. Okay, cool. But if this is supposed to launch your DCU or your hard launch, because your soft launch is going to be like a couple of these shows, like Waller and Creature Commandos and maybe like Booster Gold or something like that, or even Swamp Thing. Because if they're honing on a director of Swamp Thing, then they must be further along on Swamp Thing than Superman. So, but this doesn't have a casting for Superman because obviously Cavill's not coming back, which is makes me sad. But I understand why. So you don't have a Superman. You don't have a director for this, and you're barely in the middle of writing the script. So why don't we just say Superman's coming out in 2025? Cool. Okay, Superman's coming out in 2025. Um, and I'm with you on that. Now, the Batman, I think the reason why they kind of like they put that date in is two reasons. One, I think because they kind of thought it was clever to do it almost exactly a year after the Joker. Um,
Um,
and two, because you got to remember Matt Reeves is writing the Penguin show. So
yeah.
the
Oh,
Penguin,
that's another thing. Sorry to cut you off. But that's another thing. I am all for a Penguin show. Sure, go for it. I'll be watching it.
uh,
I I I personally don't want it to tie in to the movie. I don't want to have to watch 8 to 10 hours of something just to be able to understand the next movie. Marvel has done enough of that, and like I've watched anyway, but I'm still like I'm good. I don't want that. Like just whatever happened to just having one movie right after the other, and you don't have to watch 15 billion things just to understand 2 hours of something. Sorry.
I'm on the polar opposite of that, where it's like because they do that, Marvel doesn't end. You know what I'm saying? We're like, well, this like there's the Batman that came out last year in what March or April?
Yeah,
I'd
March.
say March. Okay, and now you're gonna 3 years from that date is gonna 3.5 years from that date is gonna be the next Batman movie, and you're gonna sit here in anticipation for it to come out. But now that they've gotten to this map with Marvel is now they start to insert little things in between it to kind of pique your interest of what's going to happen. And I think that that's what's going to happen with the Penguin series is because it's going to show how where he gets from point A to point B,
Mhm.
part one to part two, and this little gap in between. Will it feature Batman? I hope not. I hope they just kind of focus on one thing and kind of reference things that may or may not have or will happen in the next movie. But in the same token, yeah, if it becomes like Marvel, where like they get like 6 shows and like 2 movies a year, and you have to watch all 6 shows to understand what's happening in those 2 movies, yeah, I can understand it. And I think that Marvel needs to kind of going off at a tangent with Marvel right now, but I think they need to tone it down where they start to do stuff more like Werewolf by Night, where it's like a one shot, where you just have like this condensed story, and maybe it is fit into the Marvel universe, and it may or may not like happen later into the Marvel universe, but it's just this side story of maybe what have happened with these random characters. Because I think Werewolf by Night was really good. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I get what you're saying. Watching because they're always like an hour. With Ms. Marvel was like 8 episodes, and they were all an hour long. So that's 8 hours of my life that maybe that story could have been condensed to like 2 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's ultimately what I'm saying. It's like yeah, like what was it? WandaVision. I I probably could have had that in a 2 hour span and been perfectly fine.
mhm.
Um yeah, and then it even worsens it if the product is not even that great. It's just kind of meh. Like I thought that's kind of how I thought WandaVision was like. It was good. in like certain episodes, it was like, okay, that really shined, but the overall product was just kind of meh to me. And I was just like, well, would you
Right.
have rather done 8 hours of meh or just 2 hours of meh?
Right.
I would take it the less. So, um, but I will still be watching the Penguin series, so it kind of is moot.
Yeah.
So I'll be understanding it regardless. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's because I'm more of a gamer, and I'm like that's where I spend more of my time, and then like it
Mm,
takes me forever to get into a series or get to a movie I've been putting off. So I just speak with that mind.
right.
It's just me.
Oh well. Um, but that's pretty much it. What's happening in DC right now. Of course, there's rumors of like Chris Pratt coming to Booster Gold, and will Gal Gadot be replaced or whatever, whatever. Um, I don't know. They're gonna call these chapters. So this one's called Gods and Monsters, apparently. Um, but that's, I mean, without it going completely into like rumors and stuff, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yep.
So, maybe one day we'll do dream casting of like the new characters. Maybe we'll replace Gal Gadot with somebody. Um, let's not do Anna de Armas though. She's Cuban, I believe, so it's not like that'd be kind of hard to do. But anyway, do you have anything else? Any other thoughts or anything?
Um. Well, I was thinking. Well, I have a little bit of tie-in with DC and Warner Brothers. Uh, it's not related to DC, but the Hogwarts Legacy games comes out um actually a week from tomorrow, so being the 10th, and I'm super excited about it. Gonna be getting it day one. Yay! Should be
Yay!
cool. For it's next week for anybody who's on the current generation of PS5, PC, and the Xboxes,
Mm,
Series S or X. So there's that, and then we got a little bit of um, it's actually I'm taking this well, and I'm actually surprised at how well the community, the gaming community, is on the delay for Jedi Survivor.
uh,
Um, yeah, it was originally supposed to be March 3rd, I believe. So real close to now. But they delayed it back to April 28th, I believe.
right, yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, you know what? That's fine. That is perfectly fine because one, it's not that long of a delay. And two, typically only that long of a delay is usually for um I mean very, very last minute polishing of the game
Mm,
and or distribution purposes. So I am perfectly fine. A lot of people are saying, hey, it gives me more time to play Hogwarts, gives me more time to do this game or that game. So and once a bad game's out there, it's out there. So
right.
there's that. And
Cyberpunk.
yeah, right. Um and then I'm trying to think. We did get a new um Fast and Furious poster I saw. I think it's a real teaser one. And I was like, golly day. So just more fuel for come May.
Yay. No,
Yep, so
thank you.
um but I know we were focusing on more DC stuff, so I was trying to think of stuff related to that.
That's okay.
But that's all I got unless you got any last minute stuff.
Nope.
Well then, I think this was a good meeting.
Yes, it was. Um, those guys are gonna be jealous that they weren't here, but all understandable. All right. I don't even know what's coming out like in the next week or so. Um, but
Well,
hopefully,
we've got this week is Knock at the Cabin,
oh, that's
80
right.
for Brady, which maybe you'll go see. um I am very much okay with that. That's more of a, people who are of the book club kind of
Right.
fandom. And then we have a very obscure animation film called The Amazing Maurice. Don't know a lick about it. Don't know anything about it. That's what our theater's getting. So it's probably the Knock at the Cabin is probably the lead one that we would probably want to go with.
Okay.
Let's see. And then next week, I know it's the re-release of Clint's greatest film of all time, Titanic, the 25th anniversary. Not only Titanic's 25th anniversary, but it's also in 4K and in 3D. It's going to be amazing. Probably not. I don't know.
Probably not.
So that and I know there's something else next week. I just can't think of it. There's probably an A24 film that I'm forgetting. But anyway, Knock at the Cabin is this week. Something else is next week. And then Ant-Man will be on the 17th.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what? Ant-Man kind of starts the roll for a good amount of movies coming out. So because you got Ant-Man there. You've got Cocaine Bear the week after. But then leading into March, you've got Creed. You've got Shazam 2. So those are just 2 hard hitters for March, and I'm sure there's a little bit more that I'm forgetting. And then you got the Super Mario Brothers movie in April. I know there's a couple other things in April. You got Mermaid.
John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick. Oh,
Yeah.
John. I'm wholly looking forward to that. I'm ashamed that I forgot it. And then like Little Mermaid in May, and then you got Indiana Jones into July or June.
January or June. Sorry, June.
Okay.
30th.
So,
I believe.
but yeah, I mean, we got a lot of stuff coming up soon. So there's gonna be so make yourself available. Watch movies.
Trying.
Yeah, I know. Just stop going to class. Or yeah, can you make the professor be like, can we make theatrical movies out now, modern theatrical movies part of our assignment?
Right.
Yeah, that would be
Yes,
awesome.
please.
So let's make and we'll get the other guys hopefully involved with this.
Yes.
Let's make Knock at the Cabin for right now our next goal.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And we'll
Hopefully.
we'll see how it plays out.
All right, sir. Then if we don't have anything else, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for everybody for watching and subscribing, and please leave a comment and like and everything. And this meeting's adjourned. See you guys later.